Hello everybody, it's April in Edmonton. A good time to prepare for the pollinators to wake up and look for some nesting spots. So what I've got here is a number of different plant stalks. I actually have a bag from last year that I collected, and there's also still out in the snow, unfortunately, lots of plant stalks that I can harvest, cut down as I clean up the yard and turn them into a pollinator home. So what we're trying to do is create these little tunnels for native bees to use as a nesting spot. The bees go inside, they crawl inside little holes that we create inside these plant stalks, and they will go inside, lay an egg, provision the egg with some pollen and food, and then close up the cells. And so they go along the stalks and fill these stalks with successive cells of eggs. So what we can do is basically supply them with a number of different thicknesses of stalks and place them inside something that provides a little bit of protection. So I actually created a cardboard tube. I cut off a piece of plastic from a milk carton and taped that to the end. We want to place different sized tunnels, basically stalks or straws inside, and fill up this tunnel here, this tube, and then hang that on either the east side of the yard or the south side or even the southeast side, sort of away from the prevailing northwest wind direction so that they get protection. Also, if possible, this should really be out of the rain, of course. So under an overhang or inside another structure that protects this whole thing from the rain. So I have some tubes that are actual paper tubes already that we could fit inside here, but in the absence of these kinds of paper tubes, we can make our own. So as I mentioned, I have a number of different plant stalks. One of the stalks that I also have this year is I had grown some gladioli and then just placed the whole thing in a bucket in the basement. Kind of forgot about them. And now I am planning to plant these in the garden at some point. I'm a little bit doubtful these will grow that well, but we'll see. So I'm cutting off the bulb, and I'm left with a nice stalk inside if I remove all the leaves. So I've already done that with one here. And so it provides a number of different segments. So I'm just going to use one of these to measure the length. And then I can cut off some sections here. That are about that length of my cardboard tube. And the next step then is to use some kind of implement to kind of just hollow out the pith a little bit here. A lot of these stalks have a pith inside, and it's nice if we can kind of poke a hole and just make a smooth tunnel for the wild bees. So I'm a little bit of a knitter. I'm no expert by all means, but I do have some needles, and so the nice thing about them having needles and this gauge is I can see what the diameter is of my knitting needles, or even of something like a bamboo skewer. So this bamboo skewer is something like 3.25 millimeters. And the type of sizes that wild bees require for laying their eggs is anywhere from 7/64 inch, which is 2.8 millimeters, to about 4.7 millimeters, or even maybe up to about 6 millimeters diameter. So you know, these knitting needles work quite well. This is, I think, a 4, so that would work. But with this particular stalk I have, I think it would actually split the stalk here because this is too thick. So I'm using a smaller diameter knitting needle and gently pushing it part way into this stalk. Now I want to leave the end closed up because the bees prefer, or they must have the end basically closed up. So I'm going to go into maybe about you know, almost all the way, but not quite, gently pushing. I don't want it to split, so I might have to quit a little bit sooner. Yeah, this is about as far as I can go for this thickness without splitting the stalk. So that stalk will work. I have another one here from outside. I think this might have been goldenrod or maybe Joe Pye. Joe Pye weed is another one, and it already has a little bit of a hole. But I just want to make this the right length for my tube. And then I want to kind of push through to make sure that the bees have a smooth entrance, a smooth tunnel to go into. And again, you know, I have to be careful. I can push as far as I can get it very gently and then pull it back. So that should create kind of a smooth hole, a smooth tunnel there. So I can just, you know, play around. This one here is actually from my garlic from the garden. Again, I left a bit of a stalk on my garlics. And even though at the bottom these have a funny little curve, this would still potentially work really well for the bees to go into and lay their eggs. If you don't have any stalks, another option is to create your own paper tubes from just basically office paper, recycled. You could use some recycled office paper. Most inks are soy-based, or you can go plain if you're a little bit concerned about the inks. So what I've done here is I've taken a piece of paper, and then I take my larger knitting needle. This one is about 4 millimeters. So, you know, a pencil I found was a little bit too thick, but maybe you have some other sticks, something else around the house that you can find and figure out what the diameter is. And then we just start at the corner and start rolling, and basically keep rolling right to the end of the paper to create this tube. I'm trying to make it nice and smooth and tight. And then at the end, I will use a piece of tape to just tidy that up, just tape that closed. I pull out the needle, and now this is too long, so I will flip over one side, one end to close it up, tape that shut. And so this paper tube will be in use for only one season. It's a good idea to put out new tubes every year. We don't really want any pests or any pathogens basically to accumulate in the garden in these tubes. That wouldn't be very good for the bees. So here I've got a nice little tube. This one is about 4 millimeters in diameter. So that can go inside my cardboard tube as well. I have seen these stalk tunnels put inside milk jugs, milk cartons, but that's a lot. You have to then really have a lot of tubes to fill, you know, to fill those kinds of containers. So it's a little bit easier if you have limited supplies to, you know, use a cardboard tube like this. But again, it does need to be in a dry spot under an overhang and closed up at one end so that the bees can have that protection of a closed up tube at the end. if you have a home, if you have a wooden pollinator home, you could also have a portion of these, instead of all blocks, you could have some of these stalks as well, and just fill a portion of this with stalks. Generally, the bees in Alberta apparently prefer the wooden blocks, but not everybody can put up one of these bee hotels. So the stalks, the plant stalks are also a really good option. You can find more information about how to build one of these at the Edmonton and Area Land Trust website. They have plans there, and so that's kind of another fun project to do. But I hope you enjoy scrounging for materials to make your own tubes, paper, either paper tubes or plant stalks that can be turned into a pollinator home. Have fun!